Okay, good afternoon. The April Fool's Day meeting of the Thousand Oaks Council on Aging is now being called to order. We'll now have the Pledge of Allegiance. So please join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. We'll now have the roll taken by Staff Liaison Francine Spriegel.
Thank you, Nick. Please say here or present when I call your name. Commissioner Allen is out. Commissioner Fotheringham.
Here.
Commissioner Gorbach.
Here.
Commissioner Hagee.
Here.
Commissioner Healy.
Here.
Commissioner Kopaz.
Here.
Commissioner Norkin.
Here.
Commissioner O'Connor.
Present.
And Commissioner Shentes is absent. Thank you.
Okay, item 4 on our agenda is public comments. A speaker card, a little pretty lavender card, is available for those wishing to address the Council on Aging regarding items on the agenda or on a subject regarding senior services in our city. Speakers are requested to state their name and city of residence for the record. So far, I have 0 speaker cards. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to address us? Okay, seeing none, I'd now like to turn the meeting over to Vice Chair Healy for our commissioner reports.
Okay. Our first commissioner report will be Senior of the Year. Oopsie daisy, thank you, Karen. Senior of the Year, and Commissioner Gorbach, right next to me, will give that one.
Thank you very much. This is coming up on a final reminder that nominations for Senior of the Year are due in about 2 weeks, tax day, April 15th. Please consider nominating a senior who has been a volunteer in our community and you feel would enjoy this honor. Individuals can nominate people. Businesses can nominate people. Organizations can nominate people. Simply go online to www.toaks.org/seniors. And the link to the application is right at the top of the page. It just takes a couple minutes to fill out. If you would rather print it out and write it up, and bring it in to the senior office at the Thousand Oaks Library, that is fine also. But please consider we do have some nominations now. We would like several more. Please consider nominating someone. You know, it's wonderful. It's a wonderful opportunity to say thank you to the fine people in our community who really live up to the famous saying by Winston Churchill that you make a living by what you get, but you make a life by what you give. So let's say thank you to some of the folks who really have given back so much to Thousand Oaks. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. It's a good thing. It does highlight your volunteers, but it's really a good thing for organizations. It's on. It's really a good thing for organizations to get visibility to that the community is aware of you when one of your volunteers is nominated. Just another encouragement to nominate from your organizations. Our second commissioner report is on education. Again, it is Commissioner Gorbach, who right next to me again. So here, Karen.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, I have had a very busy week so far. You know, my job is to report on educational opportunities throughout the community. And just to let you folks know that on Monday night, I attended a lecture at the Thousand Oaks Library on baseball. And I learned so much. I mean, I learned what the impact World War II had on the game in the United States. I mean, beyond the obvious that a number of very outstanding players were drafted, but beyond that, I really learned a lot. It was terrific. And then last night, I went to a free lecture debate on the topic of faith. that was held at one of the religious institutions here in town, and it was so interesting, and my brain is so buzz because it was really, really deep and really interesting. And there are so many things to go to. You could be busy every day if you wanted to. Let me just tell you a couple of the educational opportunities that are coming up. And again, these are not endorsements. This is for informational purposes. And the first one is coming up at the Thousand Oaks Library this afternoon, a presentation by Denise Calhoun, who wrote a book called Handbook of Activities for the Elderly, this afternoon from 4 to 5:30. Very, very interesting. You may not want to miss that one. Then, as part of the CLU lecture series on the 60s, also this is taking place at the library. Next week on April 9th, there is a lecture called To the Moon and Back, Scientific Achievements in the 60s. I'm definitely going to go to that one. If you think where you were when we landed on the moon, you will want to be at this lecture. And again, this is free, open to the public. And then, here's another one I'm going to be at: How to Get Your Crime Novel Published. And this is presented not only by the Thousand Oaks Library, but by AAUW and a group of writers called Sisters in Crime. This is coming up Saturday, April 11th from 2 to 3:30. It just goes on and on. I'll just give you one more. Again, this is the Channel Islands lecture series, and this is also at the library, Thursday, April 16th, Hidden Gems of Latin America. Stephen Clark, professor of Spanish and chair of the Spanish language programs at CSUCI. This presentation will provide an overview of several Latin America's lesser known but intriguing cities, with an emphasis on their culture, history, and architecture. That sounds great. So get out there and learn something, and thank you for the opportunity to chat with you today.
Thank you again, Karen. Our final commissioner report today is on legislation, and Commissioner Ron, will sit right next to her, will take care of that one.
I found it interesting that the legislation was scheduled on April Fool's Day. I don't know what Nick was trying to tell us, but so what I'd like to do first is to cover an old law that's been in effect since 1997 they may not be aware of, and that seniors do have a resource, and they do have an advocate. This law is designed to help seniors by contacting the Health Insurance Counseling and Advocacy Program, or HICAP. And it gives you a free health insurance counseling for senior citizens. They have a toll-free number, 1-800-434-0222. And if you have any questions about your health insurance, if the coverage has changed and so forth, you can just call that number and they have all the answers for you. And interesting enough, that law has been in place since 1997. I talked to several people who had no idea that this was available to them as seniors. Now let's go to the new legislation taking effect in January and sometimes July of this year. The new laws that were signed in by the governor, 930 of them. So sit back, and I'm going to cover all these and drive Chris. No, I picked out a couple that I thought were interesting. And the first one is they require the certification program for an applicant for licensing of an RCFE consists of 80 hours of coursework, 60 hours which must be attended in person, and a state-administered examination of no less than 100 questions. Why did it take them this long to come up with this standard? I mean, there's a lot of untrained people out there who are going to have to get trained in order to work with the seniors. The examination is to ensure the rigor and quality, and they cover such topics as dementia, managing Alzheimer's disease, and related dementias, managing the physical environment, and residents' rights. So this is this bill went into effect, or it will go into effect on January 1st, 2016. And I believe that's so that people can get ready for that. They can set up the coursework, hire instructors, and so forth in order to ensure that the people that work with your parents or grandparents are qualified. It's nice that they're going to do this now. Now, there's another law that requires that at least one administrator, facility manager, or designated substitute who's at least 21 years of age and has adequate qualifications as specified to be on the premises 24 hours a day of these homes, RCFE homes. I don't know who they had there at night before, but now they have to have a qualified person there at night. And it also attaches to the training and the certification that the other bill requires. This also will take effect in 2016, so getting people ready for that. Okay, only 937 to go. Now, there is a bill that increases the amount of civil penalties that can be imposed for violation. These homes can be visited. That's an older law, is that they can be visited unannounced at any time and can be given a citation. Well, now those citations have penalties attached to them. The one that I wanted to get into, the extra training, and attached to that bill for extra training covers pretty much what I had covered the other one, 80 hours, 60 hours instruction, adds additional topics. But what's attached to this bill at the very end is interesting. This bill also prohibits RCFE licensees, their officers, and employees from retaliating against residents or staff for calling 911. Apparently in the past there have been a lot of complaints that people call 911 for whatever reason, and then the staff, the officers, retaliate against these people. Sometimes they lose their residency there. I'll save the rest of the 980 for next time.
I'm going to count on that. Ron, thank you very much for this. I've been a long-term care ombudsman in Ventura County for the past 7 years and visit the RCFEs, which stands for Residential Care Facilities for the Elderly. The other type of care is SNF or SNF, which is Skilled Nursing Facility. Just these new rules are so critical to making sure that if it's for me that's in there or somebody that I love, the care is so important that these people be monitored. And if you ever personally visit a person in any kind of a long-term care facility and you notice anything that seems remiss to you, contact the long-term care ombudsman. You can call anonymously. Don't let somebody not have an advocate there for themselves. So thank you. Thanks, Ron. I appreciate that.
Okay, and thank you, Vice Chair Healy. Item 6 is liaison reports. In addition to being an advisory body to the City Council, the Council on Aging also appoints commissioners to act as liaisons to various organizations. And the first organization that we're going to discuss today is the Ventura County Area Agency on Aging, and Vice Chair Healy will present that report.
I attended our last meeting. The Ventura County Area Agency on Aging Advisory Council has 2 people from about from every location, I believe, almost every city in Ventura County. They meet, I'm going to invite everybody to come to these meetings. They meet on the second Wednesday of every other month. So since we met in March, we'll be meeting in May, right? Okay. So it's really, these meetings are open to the public. They are held out on County Line Drive. It's under Ventura County, the Area Agency on Aging. Come, definitely come. They're open to the public. We discuss grants. Our last meeting was devoted a lot to discussing the grants that have been given out to county nonprofits, and we check them every quarter to see are they fulfilling what services they are expected to fulfill for the grants they received. So there's a lot of watching of what goes on and a lot of controlling. Again, it's an open to the media, open to the public meeting. Certainly, it's a good idea to come. Thanks very much. Say that again. Wednesday. Second Wednesday of every month, every other month, starting, we were in March, so the next one will be May. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Vice Chair Healy. I also mentioned if you need more information on the Ventura County Area Agency on Aging and so forth, you can go to the County of Ventura's website and look for VCAAA, and you'll find some background information and some confirmation of what we've just identified in terms of the meeting schedule. Okay, the next item on our agenda is the Conejo Senior Volunteer Program, and Commissioner O'Connor will bring us up to date.
Thank you very much. I'm going to be reading some great things that are happening through the Conejo Senior Volunteer Program, which Director Rick Tanaka has given me. And in case some of you don't know what that really is, the mission statement for it is to provide an opportunity for adults age 55 and over to use their life experience and skills to meet local community needs. So it's a great place to volunteer, and also for those people who get the benefits of it. So it's April 1st. I don't know who hasn't done their tax returns, but it's getting close to the deadline. So they do have a free service. It's offered each year for adults age 60 plus and for households earning less than $53,000 a year. This service is taking place at Conejo Creek South Community Room across the street from the Global Center on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays, and at the Newbury Park Library on Wednesday. It is a first come, first serve, no appointments. The last day of service will be Wednesday, April 15th. And we do have some information on the back for those of you who are here. Now, the Conejo Senior Volunteer Program is also accepting applications for its advisory council. The Conejo Senior Volunteer Program seeks business leaders, nonprofit agency personnel, and those working in the fields of aging or volunteerism to serve on its advisory council. New appointments are now being considered for 3-year terms. The council meets on the second Thursday of every month: January, March, May, July, September, and November. Meetings are held from 1 to 2:30 p.m. at the Global Adult Community Center. Some of the things that are included are fundraising and resource development, volunteer recruitment, retention and recognition, generating community awareness and support, and measuring the accomplishments and impacts of the Conejo Senior Volunteer Program in the community. Applications are due by July 31st, 2015. Please mail, fax, or email your application to the Conejo Senior Volunteer Program office. So we do have those here, and you can also pick them up at the Global Community Center. And the last thing is a fundraiser at the Conejo Players Theater. So on Saturday, May 23rd, Conejo Players Theater will be doing a performance of The Graduate with a portion of the proceeds going back to support the CSVP programming. Tickets will be going on sale at the Global Adult Community Center later this month. Please call the office at 805-381-2742 for more information on any of these items. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner O'Connor. And our third liaison report today is from the Goebel Center, and our good friend Patty Ham is here to bring us up to date on what's happening there.
Good afternoon, Commissioners, and happy April. On Sunday, April 12th, we will be having our annual community garage sale. It will run from 8 a.m. to 1 p.m., so I invite everyone to come out and shop for new and exciting treasures. They may be old for the person buying them, but for you, they could be new and exciting. And I believe that we have probably about 30 spots still available. We're half full. If you have treasures in your garage or in an extra room that you want to get rid of, you want to sell, I invite you to come visit us at the front desk and you can get a spot. I believe those are $30. The Goebel Senior Center Commission will be offering their Friday night bingo on Friday, April 12th. The doors will open at 5 and bingo starts promptly at 6:30. For those of you who aren't able to attend fun bingo games during the day because you're busy working or other things, the Friday night bingo is offered once a month, give you the opportunity to have fun with your friends or come enjoy a game of bingo at the Senior Center.
Patty, before we move on, what is the date of the Friday night bingo? I think you gave us April 12th.
April 24.
Oh, 24th, okay.
April 12 is a community garage sale, I'm sorry. Friday, April 24 is the bingo night. A couple of other things that are going on sale today. Tickets are going on sale for our Sunday, May 3rd History Comes Alive series, where you can join Jerry Olson in exploring the history of the early Norwegian settlers in the Conejo Valley. Also going on sale today for our Tuesday, May 5th Cinco de Mayo Fiesta at Casa de Goebel. We will be having Mexican food and música and dancing and maracas. It'll be a good time. I invite you all to come. That's $5 per person. And then lastly, tickets go on sale today for our first-time offering of our Mother's Day Intergenerational Tea Party on Saturday, May 9th, the day before Mother's Day, from 10 a.m. to 12. Mothers, daughters, grandmothers, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, great-great-grandchildren, everyone is invited, and that's $5 per person.
Okay, thank you, Patty. This is the time in our meeting where we have our guest speaker presentation. As a reminder, questions will not be taken from the audience during this portion of the meeting. This is not a public forum, but an informational presentation only. If you have questions for the speakers, please hold them till after the end of the meeting, and the speakers will stay behind to answer them. At this time, I would like to ask Commissioner Kopacz to introduce our guest speakers.
Thank you. Today we have with us from the Cancer Support Community Valley Ventura Santa Barbara, Keo Matsumoto, the Program Associate and Marriage and Family Therapist Intern with the program. Keo conducts program development, coordinates community outreach efforts, and facilitates support groups. Our speakers, Art Connolly, retired aerospace engineer and executive. He is a 3-time cancer survivor. Jesse Ngala, retired jeweler, burn survivor, cancer survivor, and caregiver to his wife when she was treated for cancer. And Jody Tompkins, Vice President of Programs. Jody has over 20 years' experience as a marriage and family therapist and oversees a comprehensive slate of programs to address the psychological needs of cancer survivors and their families. They will address emotional distress that cancer patients may experience, the effects on physical progress, and medical compliance. The types of support groups, classes, and social events they sponsor, and share their own testimonials about as cancer survivors. welcome all of you.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. I'm going to try to manage the technological piece of this. I'm Jody Tompkins, and as you mentioned, I'm the Vice President of Programs for the Cancer Support Community. I'd like to mention that we are formally the Wellness Community. We've been here for 24 years, and for about 20 of those, we were known as the Wellness Community. So I want to make sure that people know that the Cancer Support Community is the wellness community that you may be familiar with. We are one and the same. We are part of a nationwide organization. We're headquartered in Westlake Village, and our vision and the purpose that we're here for is so that nobody should face cancer alone. More than half of cancer patients may suffer from distress, and I think really that's kind of an understatement. The truth is that loss of control, feelings of isolation, and loss of hope are pretty typical responses to a diagnosis of cancer. This distress can really affect a patient's physical progress. The distress can also affect the entire family, and the family's distress can affect the patients as well. It's really important for us at the Cancer Support Community that we provide services for the whole family. So as you hear me talking about this, we're talking about cancer patients, their family members and friends, their children, anybody who's been affected by cancer. Doctors often are focused on the physical symptoms and treatment. That's what they're trained to do. That's what they specialize in doing. We're incredibly grateful that research is available and that our doctors are up to date on what they're doing in order to help people with a cancer diagnosis. Cancer Support Community is here in order to come in and help with the psychosocial or the psychological issues that come along with such a diagnosis. 85% of cancer patients get their care at community hospitals and oncology practices. So what we do is we help people to restore hope, reduce their stress, regain control, and help them also to work with their healthcare system. So you noticed our name is the Cancer Support Community, and we were formerly the Wellness Community. Community is really very powerful as a concept. We are the largest professionally led network of cancer support worldwide. We have over 50 affiliates in the United States and internationally. And the Cancer Support Community and Wellness Community pioneered psychological and emotional support. The power of community is seen by who we've served. I have some statistics up here so that you can see. Just at our affiliate here in Valley Ventura, Santa Barbara, over 3,000 people, unduplicated individuals, were served in 2013. You know, in the 20,000s of hours of service. We provide services in English and Spanish. And we do have 4 locations, primarily here in Westlake Village. We also have a satellite in Winnetka in the San Fernando Valley. And we have hospital partnerships at the cancer centers in Oxnard and Camarillo with St. John's and in Ventura at Community Memorial Hospital. So we feel really privileged to be able to serve all of Ventura County, as well as some of San Fernando Valley, to provide the psychosocial services to cancer patients and their families. We have a 5-prong approach as far as what are the different services that we offer. I'd like to make sure that I mention to you now, and we'll probably say to you again, that we are a nonprofit organization, and one of the things that I'm so proud to be able to say is that every service that we offer is free of charge. It always has been and it always will be. It's really important for people not to have an additional financial stress when they're going through a cancer diagnosis. And so we are really fortunate from the support that we get from our community to be able to provide all of our services. One of the things that we do, some say it's the heart of what the Cancer Support Community offers, are support or networking groups. They are led by trained and licensed therapists. They're not therapy groups, they're support groups. The power of community shows in that our group members support one another. We have a number of different types of groups that are cancer specific. We have groups for cancer patients. We have separate groups for family members. It's very important sometimes for people to be able to walk in together, kiss each other, go complain about each other in their separate groups, and come back again. It's very, very helpful to have that opportunity to have their own issues in place for support and not necessarily have to do that within their own family of origin. We have specific groups for kids and teens, for young adults. We also have a bereavement group that focuses specifically on bereavement for when somebody's life has been affected by cancer. And it's a little bit different, so we're able to provide specialized support in that way. We also have educational workshops that are open to the community. These educational workshops range from a series that might talk about stress reduction to nutritional, food demonstrations, actually, about healthy eating, anxiety reduction. We have doctors that come in, a Frankly Speaking series that will talk about cancer-specific information and latest research, coping with the cost of care, side effects. There are all sorts of different things that affect people who are going through the cancer journey and their family members. So we really try to provide a very wide range of educational workshops, and also for the general community to find out more about what we're about, and to have a point of access if they don't want to necessarily come to a support group, but they do want to connect with other people. In addition, we have a very strong mind-body program. Research has really indicated that stress is directly related to the functioning of your immune system. And so one of the things that we are committed to providing are programs that connect people's minds and bodies, reduce stress. We have yoga, relaxation, guided imagery, qigong, meditation, dance. It's really amazing. And again, all of these services are offered to cancer patients, to people in treatment, done with treatment, family members, and friends. It's amazing what happens when people are able to come into community and meet one another, and also take care of their minds and their bodies, and they're able to comply with their treatment better, their immune systems are healthier. There's quite a quality of life and hope that comes from that. In addition, we have social events, expressive arts. We have a comedy night actually coming up on April 13th, the second Monday of every month from 7 to 8 o'clock at our Westlake Village location. We have professional comedians that come in, and we all know that comedy and laughter is very healing and helpful. So it's a wonderful thing to gather and get to just come and laugh. We have a group called the Naughty Knitters. They've just excused themselves to their own room recently because they were too loud. So they were having a great time. I love going in and visiting with them when they come. And they knit, they teach each other, and they're in community. They celebrate their living. We have watercolor classes, a quilt club, we have a walking club, we have holiday events. We try to have fun and be in community. We have community lunch or community dinner once a month. I'd like to mention, too, give a little plug. If any of you have access to the internet, we have a website that has all of this information on it. It's kind of a mouthful. It's www.cancersupportvvsb, like Valley Ventura, Santa Barbara.org. So you can find out all of this information and all of the specific programs that we have in all of our locations. Power of community. What we find is that when people are in community, when they're with one another, when they're not isolated, they feel much more connected, less alone. That's kind of obvious. But 85% of people respond and say that they feel more hopeful, that they, over 80%, have a better quality of life. They feel more in control. They feel less anxious. These are all of the things that we don't usually feel accompanies a cancer diagnosis, and it's extremely important when you're healing from anything to address this. And people report that they feel less depressed. So part of what we're about is living. And living hopefully and moving forward. It's just amazing and so uplifting to walk through our doors. And sometimes walking through our doors are the hardest thing. You're fortunately, after you hear me talking about all the statistics, you're going to get to actually hear from some people who've gone through this, and I can't wait for you to hear. Power of community is a lovely quote. We're all angels with only one wing, and we can only fly by embracing one another. you're here today, you're meeting with each other. Somebody said to me earlier, and I've heard this over and over again, I came and I'm not a group joiner. I'm not comfortable with other people. This is one of the reasons why we have so many different ways that people can access the cancer support community. Because maybe you don't really want to join a group, but you're feeling isolated, and so you come for lunch. And then you find it's actually kind of nice to be around other people who have similar experiences. And then maybe you decide that you're going to come to an educational workshop, and lo and behold, somebody's coming to a regular group. And they're getting that support because they've found a niche that really didn't feel comfortable before. So I really encourage people to look for a place that they might want to access that might fit for them. Try it out. If you, a loved one, a friend, a coworker are living with cancer, you're not alone. One of the things that I've been able to do recently as the Vice President of Programs is expand what we do into some of the local schools. And it's amazing to me to go to junior high and high school students and ask them, how many of you either know somebody in your family or have a friend who has been touched by cancer? And somewhere between 80 and 90% of these young people raise their hands. That might be really alarming, and yet more and more people are living with cancer as a chronic disease. They're getting wonderful treatment, but the aftermath of this journey affects so many of us, and so it's really important not to feel like we're alone in it, that there's a community out there that can support whatever it is that you're going through, and that the community is welcome to come to us. We would love to connect with you. What can you do to help? As I said, many of these young people that I've talked with recently know somebody. Many of you may know somebody, or, God forbid, have somebody in your family who has been affected by cancer. The most important thing that we can all do is make sure that if somebody is diagnosed, or if you know somebody in your life, that you can let them know we're here. The hardest thing is to have somebody come into our doors and say, wow, I wish I'd known you were here 6 months ago. I wish I'd known about you a year ago. I myself, went through cancer with both my mom and dad and had no idea at the time that the wellness community or the cancer support community existed. I sure wish I had. So it's part of what drew me to this organization. So that's what you can do to help, is really be available to your family members and friends and direct them to us if they need some support. Some people are interested in volunteering. I just want to make a little plug and let you know we have the most amazing crew of volunteers I have ever seen, and I've worked in the nonprofit sector for over 25 years. Just amazing, amazing people. We have all sorts of different events, and we have people who also come in and volunteer in our office, or maybe they do paperwork. So if any of you are interested, you want to give back, we're here and available, just to let you know. We love having people walk through our doors. And we also like to celebrate. So I want to mention to you that we have one of our very large events is our annual gala. Some people call it a gala. It's happening on May 1st at the Four Seasons. It's a beautiful evening. It's really fun. There's great food and dancing and music, and it supports what we do all year long, all those things I just told you about. So if you have any interest, please go to the website, and you're welcome to join us that evening. Now what I'd like to do is introduce you to our two members of our Speakers Bureau are here to speak to you, tell you a little bit about their story and how they've connected with the wellness community and the cancer support community. And first, I would like to introduce Art Connolly to you. As you mentioned, he is a 3-time cancer survivor, and I'm going to turn over the podium to him.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Art Connolly, and I'm here to talk with you about cancer. Now, there's a very uncomfortable subject. So why talk about cancer? Because by not talking about it, we won't make it go away. And by talking about it, we can also talk about the wonderful services that the cancer support community provides to families and individuals who are fighting it. As a 3-time cancer survivor, I know what I'm talking about. I had prostate cancer in 1997 with a radical prostatectomy. Thyroid cancer in 2006, total thyroidectomy. and then small bowel cancer in 2008. The first two, fortunately, caught early. The cancer was found on removal of the gland to be encapsulated within the gland. So it turned out no further follow-up treatment was necessary other than regular checkups and blood tests. So the key message there was early detection. Early detection can be key to a successful outcome. What you don't want to hear from your doctor is, gee, I wish you'd have been here a year ago. So anytime you're scheduled for a test, colonoscopy, whatever, do have it done on time. See your doctor regularly. If there are health fairs going on in the neighborhood, go attend those. You never know, volunteering for particular trials can lead to something life-saving. If we had time, I'd tell you the funny story about how being in a healthy heart study at Cedars-Sinai is what led to me, over a long and twisty path, finding out I had thyroid cancer, but finding it out early, and so therefore, good luck on its removal, and it's in my past. The small bowel cancer was different. It took quite a while to understand what the symptoms were and what that meant. Finally had the diagnosis that said, oh, yeah, there's a tumor there. So, and it's not colon cancer. This is different. It's rare and more aggressive. I was the first patient my surgeon had who had ever had small bowel cancer. On removal of the tumor and a certain section of my small bowel, they found that it had invaded a couple of the adjacent lymph nodes. So I needed to become acquainted with an oncologist. So we found one, and I was his first small bowel cancer patient. So as he went over my records and he did his research, he told me, well, there is something we'd like to try in the way of chemotherapy. And that's an interesting thing to hear, would like to try. But what he did that was so positive was he said, I want you, before we do anything else, to go down to Norris Cancer Center at USC and see what they recommend. So I did that. He sent my records down there. I talked with them. And they said, yes, what your doctor is recommending is exactly right. Go back to him, go through that course of treatment. So that led to 6 months of chemotherapy in the first half of 2009, which so far has been successful. Now, the key message there is second opinion. When you're facing something like cancer, always get a second opinion. It may be that the second opinion will offer up some ideas that the first doctor hadn't thought of, and even as in my case, where they say, oh, what's being recommended is exactly right, you come out of that second opinion feeling a whole lot more confident that this could work, because now you've had two people tell you this is the thing to do. There's no reason when you get a cancer diagnosis not to take advantage of the fact that we have major medical centers here, City of Hope, Cedars-Sinai, UCLA, USC. So you don't want to limit yourself on the diagnostic and the curative options available to you here. Which takes me to how did my wife and I find out about Cancer Support Community. Well, aside from being a great doctor, my oncologist had the foresight to have some pamphlets out in his waiting room for what was then called the Wellness Community. So in addition to the great medical care I was getting, my wife and I found, oh, there's a place to go for the psychological and emotional support we both so desperately needed. So I wound up going into a survivors support group, and she went into the caregivers support group that met the same evening in the room next door. Now, one of the things that's nice about the cancer support community is we take the attitude that from the moment of your diagnosis, you're a survivor. We accentuate the positive. Again, removing stress, providing hope, helping to eliminate fear. Now, sometimes when we're out talking to people and trying to tell them about the key part of our program, the support groups, people are thinking, why would I want to be in a room with a bunch of other people who are fighting off cancer? Or why would I want to be in a room with a bunch of other people whose loved ones are dealing with cancer? That must be very depressing. On the contrary, it's very uplifting. You're finally talking to people who really know how you're feeling and what you're talking about. They're further down the journey. They know the fear, the despair, the likelihood you could break out in tears at any moment, and all they do is hand you a Kleenex, and they tell you, don't apologize for crying. We know what you're going through. They'll volunteer to go to the next doctor's appointment with you. Because sometimes it's the doctor who doesn't get just exactly how bad you're feeling, and you need those extra pair of ears in the office to listen to what he's saying and to ask him some more questions. It's a wonderful thing to be in a support group. And most importantly, we found, you form friendships that used to occur only in foxholes in wartime. So please help us spread the word. When my wife and I found out about the cancer support community, again, it was with my third cancer. The first two, we had no idea there were outside groups that could really help. So we don't want the cancer support community to be a stealth organization. We want it to be on your radar anytime a friend, a neighbor, a coworker comes out of their doctor's office with that deer in the headlights look. Tell them about us so we can be of help. Support is our middle name. Now with that, I'd like to introduce you to Jesse Angala, one of my foxhole buddies, who has his own story on being a caregiver and a survivor. Jesse.
Thank you, Art. For a long time, I wondered if somebody had my number. 24 years ago, I had an accident at my business in which I ended up being burned 64%, most of it third degree. UCLA, where I was brought to, pretty much told my family that I wasn't going to make it. They kind of gave up on me and passed me off to the Grossman Burn Center, where I was airlifted that same day. And after 3 months in ICU, I stand before you today. About 7 years ago, my wife was diagnosed with breast cancer with no history, nothing in her family. To say it was a shock would be an understatement. A year and a half after that, I was diagnosed with prostate cancer. So we kind of switched roles. She became the caregiver, and I became the one who had to deal with it on a more active basis. Through it all, the one thing that helped us tremendously was our involvement with the cancer support community. Then it was called the wellness community. We started attending support groups. My wife in the survivor group, in fact, she was in the same group with Art, and myself in the room next door, the caregivers group, in which I also attended with Art's wife, Paula. For many years, for several years really, we attended that faithfully. Our grandson even ended up attending what is referred to as the Kids Circle. He was 4.5 at the time, and he was living with us. In fact, we were a 4-generation household. We had our mother, my mother living with us, my daughter, well, of course, me, and then my daughter, and then our grandson. And in spite of all the support that we were being given at home, we had to reach out because it was just getting to be too much. Our grandson, even though he was pretty young, we were concerned because he was walking around with his eyes wide open every time Nana would come home from a procedure, and he couldn't hug her because he was very tender. So he started attending a Kids Circle, which is a play therapy session. And one of the most memorable parts about that I can remember is one of the therapists one day telling me about a little boy who went home to his mother and told her, "Mommy, I know why you lost your hair. Because now you're going to get better, right?" Well, you know, that's quite an acknowledgement for a young child. And it shows that they are able to accept and comprehend some of this. Now, as far as I was concerned, well, actually my wife and I were concerned, the circumstances around her initial chemotherapy was not the best, because we had to cancel her first chemo session because we had planned a funeral for my mother. So after that, in my diagnosis, to say that I was going through a big bout of depression would be an understatement. Because, frankly, I just never got to grieve for my mother. Because my wife was diagnosed, we had to take care of her. Then I was diagnosed, he had to take care of me. And through the auspices of the cancer support community, I was able to get personal counseling to help me deal with my depression, and also counseling for my wife and myself. Even though we started with this therapist at CSC, we went and saw him on our own for 2.5 years. And that helped tremendously. What we're really trying to sell here is hope. Hope is a very, very precious commodity. You never know how it happens. You never know when it's going to come. You see, when I was burned 24 years ago, these hands were burned down to the tendons. The doctors were pretty much telling me that I was going to lose some digits. Well, thank goodness, I still have them, obviously, which was the good thing. Because when my children became teenagers, I wanted to strangle them. A very good friend of mine and fellow Speakers Bureau member, Dale Richter, was diagnosed with stage 4 stomach cancer several years back. And when he was diagnosed, he looked it up on the web, and the information he found out was that 90% of the people who were diagnosed with his disease didn't make it. There was only a 10% survival rate. So the next day, after he dealt with his diagnosis, Dale went out and bought a kayak. Hey, you know, makes sense to me. You get diagnosed with a fatal disease, you go out and buy yourself a kayak. But what saw him through was the knowledge of a line that is in orientation sessions that are given to new members. And basically what it says is that there are people in this world who are still walking around despite a stage 4 diagnosis. For Dale, it's 12 years down the road. He is no evidence of disease. He's even on the phase to retirement. So, what I'd like to leave you with is to remind you that if you run into anybody that is affected by cancer, just mention to them about the cancer support community. Just mention to them that all the services are free. Anybody who is affected by cancer is they have a friend, and they know who they can find people who speak the language. And then tell them to go out and buy themselves a kayak. Thank you.
Do we have another speaker? No? Okay.
Thank you very much for sharing.
All right. Are there any questions from the commissioners? Say, Nancy.
Yes, I'm sorry. As a member of the Council on Aging, I want to thank all of you for coming very much. As a personal person, my husband was diagnosed with lung cancer in November of 2014. Not a joiner, never a joiner. So my friend Dinah, who just walked in, is the one who reminded me of your being there when we first found out. So I dragged him to an orientation meeting with Marty, and so I thought he'll never go back. And then he went back to a support group, not a joiner. He has gone to that Wednesday night support group ever since November. I don't believe he has missed a time. He came home at first saying, I can invite you. Marty said I could invite you to the Christmas party. And I said, the Cancer Support Group Christmas party? And he said, yeah, they say it's really festive. And I thought, wow, it doesn't sound it. We went, and it was really fun. Everyone there had a good time. I mean, it truly was like you'd go to any party, except more fun. We have gone to, from his support group, 2 of the people have had parties at their homes where we were invited, that we celebrated a birthday and we celebrated something else one time. But it has been such a huge help to him. I mean, it's just been amazing. And I can't tell people too much how good it is to try it. You may never go back, but boy, I bet you when you walk through that door that you will go back. So thank you guys very much for being there. It's a hugely important service to our community. Thank you guys, and thank you to the survivors too for speaking. Appreciate it.
Okay, anyone else? Well, I have one question. It strikes me that each of us falls into one of 2 categories. Either we have cancer or we don't know whether we have cancer. And the latter and so forth is sometimes as scary as the former category. It strikes me that your organization may be in a sort of a relatively unique position to help those who are in the position of not knowing whether they have cancer. And I came to this path because my father was not a cancer survivor. He got pancreatic cancer after he was told his tumor was too big and not operable, and which leads to the question, well, could we have found it earlier and so forth? And then we hear a lot about screening for cancer, how, many people don't get screened early enough. On the other hand, if you get screened too early, you run into a lot of false positives, and which either runs up the bill or scares you to death and leads to a lot of other testing and so forth. And for each type of cancer, there's probably some optimal strategy for when you should seek screening, and regardless of whether or not your insurance pays for it. Some of us even would be willing to pay for it ourselves if we settle our peace, give us some peace of mind and so forth. And it strikes me that your sort of corporate wisdom and so forth, in terms of the number of survivors you have, may have some notion about, well, I caught mine just in time because I got this type of screening and so forth at such a stage, or I didn't caught it quite as early as I would have liked. And do you make an effort to sort of put together that sort of information and advise people that don't have cancer but worry about whether they do, or don't know that they have cancer but worry about it?
So, a very good question. We work primarily with people after they receive a cancer diagnosis. As you said, of course, this is a subject of discussion in many of our groups, and we work really closely with the medical professionals that are in the communities that we serve. So, for instance, with our hospital partnerships, we're very closely connected to the cancer centers at Community Memorial Hospital in Ventura and St. John's. We're up on all of the different types of screenings that they're doing, and we make referrals and information available to all of our participants as often as we can. And it's the other reason why we have all of the educational workshops that we offer, so that if there is some latest information, that we provide that information to the community. Specialists as far as screenings and as far as medical treatment, no, that isn't the purview that we take, but we do work really closely with the oncologists, the radiation oncologist, medical oncologist, and the regular physicians in the area. So we don't necessarily put that data together. However, the Cancer Support Community organization that is our umbrella, our headquarters is in Washington, D.C., and they really have kind of I talked about our 5-prong approach of all the services that we offer. They have kind of a 2-pronged approach. One of them is advocacy, and the other one is a research approach. So there's a tremendous amount of information that our headquarters, the Cancer Support Community, has available that we can tap into if people ask for referrals and information, and also that people can go to cancersupportcommunity.org website for our national research information. So I think a lot of that is there. I don't know if you have more?
I'd also like to add that we have lots of educational seminars available. But in particular, I would like to point out that among the staff that comprise the CSC is a wonderful lady named Susan Spears. She is one of the few, not in this country, in the world, who is a certified nutrition oncologist. It is a fairly new category. And what it is she can advise you as to how you can approach prevention, or in most cases, the diagnosis that you have, as far as what food to eat, what food to avoid, and what food to eat to help you recover. In particular, I think of one particular gentleman who, I can't recall his name, but he was diagnosed with stage 4 prostate cancer. He was also a diabetic. So through consultations with Susan Spears, he changed his complete diet. One of the things that he did was he cut out red meat and became pretty much a vegan. And in a matter of about 1.5 years, he still is dealing with prostate cancer, but he was able to go off his medication as far as his diabetes was concerned. So she's available, and again, free of charge.
Yeah, I would just like to refer back to one of the remarks I made in my earlier presentation about getting all the medical tests you can. I alluded to the Cedars-Sinai Healthy Heart Study that led to my finding the thyroid cancer. And again, sometimes what you have to depend on in early detection is just plain luck. In this case, making your own luck means going out and getting involved in any health fairs or any studies that are going on, because you never know where they might lead. In this case, just now that the questions come up, my wife signed me up for the Healthy Heart Study at Cedars-Sinai. It involved 5 years. You went in, and they were looking at coronary issues with calcium deposits in the arteries. They did a CT scan of the heart, and then over the next 5 years, you answered a survey annually. Had you had any angina or any other cardiac issues, how is your diet doing? How much exercise do you get? Because they were doing a long-term study as to whether calcium deposits were an early indicator of future problems. At the end of the 5 years, you went back for another heart scan. They came back and said, well, your heart looks just fine, but there's this little shadow on your lung we're not sure about. Well, that sent a chill down my spine. So I went to an imaging place right near our house, and now with contrast, had another CT scan done of the whole chest. They came back quickly and said, oh, that's probably just a little bit of scarring left over from an early episode of pneumonia you might not even have known you had. So you don't have to worry about your lungs. However, your thyroid is poking down on the left side where it shouldn't be. We really ought to take a look at that with ultrasound. Well, I was there the next day, and we did that, and they said, that doesn't look good, which technicians usually aren't supposed to do. But mine was so egregious, they said, yeah, you need to see somebody about this. So that's how we found the thyroid cancer early. So you never know where it's going to go, as long as you're conscientious about seeing doctors at the right time. And personal opinion about false positives, and like there's a big issue about mammograms or about colonoscopies or about PSA tests. I guess I'd rather deal with a false positive and try to be mature enough to know how to handle that, maybe even if it means getting a second opinion, rather than a false negative. That's the one you don't want to hear about later. So that's just my personal take on it. Thank you for the question.
I think you're right on the money, and I just wish there were enough healthy heart studies to go around. Certainly in getting in most of the early detection of cancers has come about when people were looking for something else and stumbled upon it, and getting involved in a clinical trial is certainly a good way to get a lot of testing looking for something else, and so I think you're right on the mark there, and I certainly agree with what you said about sort of the maturity in dealing with false positives, and that's, I think, the secret to it is having recognizing that there is such a thing as a false positive, and having a strategy for not scaring the dickens out of yourself every time you come across one. And okay, well, are there any other comments that have come to mind, Roberta?
I have one.
Okay.
I would like you all right now to get up, grab your calendar, and circle the date, Wednesday, May 6th. We will have with us from Washington, D.C., Sally Herm, Project Advisor of Education and Outreach with AARP. Sally is an elder law attorney, author, and internationally recognized spokesperson on elder law, advanced care planning, surrogate decision-making, consumer fraud, elder abuse, and financial security. Please come down here and join us and meet her next month. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Roberta. And we're moving into the final item on our agenda, which is commissioner comments. Are there any other? Yes, Karen.
Thank you very much. I was over at the Thousand Oaks Library this morning and chatting with the receptionist in the administrative office, Nancy, and she said, "Did you see this article?" I said, "Oh, what?" And she showed me an article in today's Los Angeles Daily News, and then read this to me, and this is important. And the article is titled 5 Evolving Demographic Trends, and it's something that we know, but we need to stay on top of this. In the next 15 years, baby boomers will all hit 65 or older, and with that come policy implications in providing nursing home care, in-home services, transportation services, and medical and health needs for this surging population. So it's incumbent upon all of us to stay on top of these issues and be absolutely certain that our local politicians stay on top of the issues also. And if you in the audience and our at-home audience ever run across anything that you would like to bring to the attention of the commission, that is why we're here. And you can reach us online at www.toaks, www.ccc.org/seniors, and let us know what you would like us to discuss and get involved in. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else with a commissioner comment? Well, I have one of a lighter nature and so forth. Today is the first birthday of my youngest cat. Not that I really know that for sure, because we got him from the animal shelter and so forth when he was about 3 months old and arbitrarily assigned April 1st as his birthday. So we're celebrating with him today, and he doesn't understand any of it. So, all right. With that in mind, we'll adjourn our meeting until a month from now. So we're adjourned.